Hi, I'm Dana, and the entirety of the last year and all of this year so far have involved a lot of big changes for me. And as an autistic person, I don't love it. I don't really see it's once the thing has changed and I'm settled with the new thing, I'm like, oh, that's a great change. I'm really glad I did that. But while the actual things are changing, I really struggle to get used to the new thing. I really struggle to let go of the old thing. I generally don't enjoy change. And it's just one of those things that you have to deal with. So I've come up with 5 of the ways that I tend to deal with it and make my life a little bit happier and nicer and easier while I'm having to deal with change. And I thought I'd share them with you today. So first off, and this is always a big one for me in every aspect of my life, and that's just indulging in special interests. I really feel like my special interests are the things that keep me going a lot of the time. I've been watching Battlestar Galactica. That's my new thing that I'm super hyper focused on and can't stop thinking about. See, that's a lie. It's Lucifer, but I'm watching Lucifer with my girlfriend and she hasn't got an awful lot of time right now, so I'm having to do what I can. And Trisha Helfer from Lucifer is in Battlestar Galactica. You didn't need to know all this information, but it's my special interest and I love it a lot. And throughout my entire life, I've moved house a lot of times and just generally had a lot of change throughout my life. And I think that's why I've always been so heavily into TV shows and movies, is that they're a special interest that can't change. It's the same thing every time I watch it, And finding just a special interest that you can engage with, even if it's not TV shows and movies like mine, even if it's art or some sort of hobby or whatever, finding the special interest that you enjoy and that brings you inner peace, very, very important, I think. And it's definitely the number one way I'm coping right now, I think. I'll go and do stuff at the new place and move my stuff and generally deal with changing everything. And then I come home and have a shower and watch Battlestar Galactica again, but everything's okay for a bit, just taking time. I'm a big proponent, is that the word? I really think that special interests for autistic people are a massive part of self-care. I think it's something that we should be engaging in and indulging in and allowing ourselves to enjoy all the time. But especially when we're having to deal with things, and especially when I'm dealing with change, that's when I'm just I want my special interests. Now, the next one is one that I feel divides people a lot, and it's journaling. Now, I've brought this up to other autistic people before, and a lot of the time they're like, oh, I always forget, and I don't know what to write, and I do this, and I do this, and that's how I used to be. It was last year, actually, that I kept a consistent journal for the first time in my life, and oh, his little paw, So yeah, I've been really, really enjoying journaling. And it's because I let go of I don't know what to write and it sounds cringy and it's like this and it's like this. I purely have a journal to remember shit and get my emotions out. Anytime I've had a nice experience, anytime I've had an argument, any conflict, anything bad that's happened, it all just gets written down. And I really like being able to go back and view it all. And I think that it really helps me to process things in real time as I'm writing, kind of thing. I think it helps me to really process things. And especially because I struggle to fully tell what emotion I'm feeling. I know if it's positive or negative, but I'll struggle to be am I angry? Am I sad? Am I hurt? What's this feeling? I feel journaling and writing it down, I'm able to do the sort of pattern recognition, autism analysis. I feel I analyse a lot of things, and I feel that's an autistic trait. And having my own shit written down in front of me, it's out of my head and I can sort of analyse it a bit more and figure out what I'm going through, what I'm dealing with, what I'm feeling, and I feel that really, really helps me to process things. And it's one of those where you've got to give yourself the space to do it. You've got to give yourself the space of in my current journal for this year, I wrote it on the 1st of January and then on the 12th. A few years back, I'd have been oh, what's the 4th of January now, so there's no point writing it now. I'll just rip that page out and start again next year. And that's not helpful. You just give yourself the peace and the time and the space and whatever else to just be I'll write in it when I feel I want to, when it feels a good time to do it, when I've got the time. When you get round to it, it's fine. It doesn't have to be daily. It doesn't even have to be weekly. It can just be whenever you feel you want to journal, whenever you have the urge to write. And I also personally really like sticking things in as little memories. It's fun. The next thing is therapy/talking to people. I really could do with a therapy session, but I can't afford it right now. When I said that I understand not everyone can get a therapist, I really, really understand, because I've got one, I've got a great one, she's right there. I haven't got the money for a session. And that's where I've been talking to people a bit more, both like some friends online and some friends in real life. And I have a lot of anxiety around talking to like normal people and not my therapist about things that I'm going through or things that I'm feeling, because I feel like there's been a lot of conversation in the last like couple of years about trauma dumping and like putting your issues onto other people and stuff. And I'm really like hyper aware and scared of doing that. Like, I don't want to trauma dump on people. I don't want people to leave a conversation and be like, shit, that was a bit much. But I also have found that it is really, really useful for me to actually talk about things and gain other people's viewpoints and opinions and reactions. It's very validating, and you know, you've got to try and find like the right space and the right people for it, which is why I also say therapy, because that is the perfect space to talk about difficult things. But obviously, we don't all have the option. We just don't. So talking to friends in like safe environments where like it's set up to like, if I trauma dump right now, you're accepting and understanding of that being a possibility, and it's okay. Like, I definitely think that there's inappropriate times and places and people to like dump all your shit on, but like, I think that it should be okay to like sort of have the consent conversation and be like, do you consent to like hearing my trauma and my bullshit and my bollocks and listening and providing that space for me? And I think that most people are quite happy to do that, most good people at least. And it is hard, it is really difficult to open up to people and like be vulnerable in that way. I do find it hard, and obviously I get really anxious, but I think it's really helpful in the long run. And it's definitely best to go to therapy and do it with a therapist, but it's not accessible for most people, myself included right now. So yeah, talking to normal people, your friends, your family, the people around you, the people that love and support you, it's okay to go to them for support. But on the flip side of that, as much as like I have really enjoyed being around people lately, I've been it's probably the most social I've been in my life actually lately, because I've been like seeing my housemate and seeing some friends, and like I've been quite social in the last few weeks, and it's been really nice but kind of a lot. And I've had a few times where like the minute I'm on my own, I just burst into tears, and it's not like, oh, I am quite sad sometimes, but it's not always just like a normal cry, you know? It's kind of like a processing cry. Like, basically, I feel like I've spent a lot of time around people, and then when I have my alone time, it's the first time in my life that I've really appreciated alone time. Like, I've always enjoyed being alone a lot of the time. Like, sometimes it gets lonely, but for the most part, I've always enjoyed being alone. But I've never appreciated it in the way that I do now, because normally I was alone all the time, you know? It was rare that I was with people. When I was, I didn't really want to be around them. So it's been really nice to have people that I actually enjoy being around. And it's then in turn made my alone time like really actually quite nice and important and like necessary for me to be able to like take alone time and process things. And because I've spoken about them to people and like I've had a life, I've been social, I've heard other people's thoughts and opinions and discussed my own stuff and heard their stuff, and it just, I feel like I'm more able then to like process my own shit and actually deal with it, rather than just pushing it all down, because that's been my tactic my entire life, is just ignore it, it'll go away, it'll be fine, we can just ignore it. And you know, like being autistic, I definitely think I still take more time than like the average person would to process things, but I feel like I'm doing it in a healthier way, and it's definitely like sped up the process for me a bit to be able to like vary it between alone time and people time. And again, I know that like it's hard to make friends. I isolated myself for many years and I've only recently made them. Like, I get that not everyone has those people there, you know, but when you've been around people and been changing things up and having a time, I think that alone time has definitely become like a really nice and important thing for me, and something I've been really enjoying. And like, I love being around the people as well. Like, that's why I've been doing it and being social. I'm very like, I'm not showing up to any events I don't want to anymore. But you know, like, it's created a balance, I think, is what I'm trying to say. And having that balance is something I found to be really vital and important, because before the balance was just being alone all the time, and that really didn't help me process anything and kind of put me in a bit of an echo chamber. So it's nice to be out of that and have the balance. I think it's really important, much more important than I realised while I didn't have it. And my final little thing is just sitting with and figuring out emotions. This has been a big thing for me lately, because I'm usually the kind of person where, like, I always have something on the background. There's always a TV show, there's music, there's something on the background. I'm thinking of the next thing I need to do, and I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna do this, and I very much keep myself busy. You know, like, I literally started YouTube because, like, my job was, it wasn't a job, it was like a volunteer position, was going downhill, and I was like, shit, I need something to, like, fill my days up with. YouTube. Like, it was a good part of the reason. I've always been someone that, like, keeps myself busy. Like, even as a kid, I'd be like, no, I've got to read my book, and I've got to watch Sarah Jane Adventures, and I've got to do this. That's always been my thing. And lately, I had some nights where I was like, oh shit, I'm messaging people and be like, hey, do you want to hang out? And it's not necessarily, I mean, it's not because I don't want to hang out with them, but I don't necessarily want to hang out with them either. I wanted to avoid what I was feeling. And as much as, like, I don't mask around my friends in the way of, like, it's exhausting, but there's definitely still some degree of a mask where it's like, if I'm having a really bad day and feel really shit, I'm still gonna show up with a smile and be like, oh, it's not going well, but I'm not gonna be like, you know, there's a mask still, an unintentional one that isn't exhausting, so it's actually nice to hang out with people, but I definitely still mask to some degree. And it comes out for me very unintentionally, which meant that I thought I was just being cheered up. Like, it's been a very recent revelation for me that I was covering up how I felt. I wasn't being cheered up by my friends. I mean, I was, because I was enjoying the time. I do genuinely enjoy being around them. But, you know, I was very much just like, I already didn't quite know what emotions they were, and then I was just shoving them down, ignoring them in favour of going and having this unintentional happy mask slip on, which then, you know, maybe it's not exhausting because it's not a fake mask, it's just me being a bit more personable, I suppose. I kind of feel like that's maybe what neurotypicals all do anyway. Like, maybe I've, like, managed to, like, unmask enough that I'm mostly unmasked and just have, like, a normal neurotypical. Anyway, once I figured that out, I've been taking some time when I feel like I need to not be busy and not have something on in the background and just sort of be like, ooh, what am I feeling there? What's that? Okay, I feel a bit sad. I feel like I'm quite overwhelmed with everything, say, I'm gonna go for a bath. I had a bath the other night, first time in like 3 years. I shower, I just don't do baths. First time in a long time. I just laid in the bath with some candles and just didn't do anything, which is rare. I've always, like, read or watched stuff in the bath. And I feel like having these just, like, quiet times of, like, sitting with myself and allowing myself to, like, feel things and just process it, I suppose. You know, it's very similar to journaling, but without the writing, I think. It's just some me time to, like, decompress and fully figure out what's going on with me and what I can do for myself and how I can accommodate for myself. And it's been really great for me. I think it's really, like, improved me as a person, honestly. I've only been doing it for a couple of weeks, and I really feel like my head's just not quite as loud, if you get me. Like, I feel like it just allows some of the things to be processed and leave rather than everything bouncing around in there all the time. And it's really nice. So yeah, that's how I'm currently dealing with change. If you have any suggestions, if you've got anything you do yourself that I've not mentioned, I would really love to hear it in the comments. Because, like, I think I'm doing quite well right now. Like, I won't lie, I'm finding life difficult still. Life's always hard. But it is at least reasonably happy right now. Like, I don't feel like I'm in, like, a total crippling depression pit anymore. Like, it's not perfect. I'm stressed, I'm overwhelmed and a bit scared. But it's all in, like, a sort of kind of exciting way. For the most part. I still get, like, absolutely gripped with anxiety sometimes. But for the most part, I am feeling good about things, I think. Change is always going to be hard for me, I think. But I am, you know, these are definitely things that have been helping me to, like, deal with it and actually, like, process things and be more present, I suppose. Because a lot of the times in the past when I've moved house and stuff, like, I don't really remember moving. It's just been like, I was there and then I was there. And it's been really weird. And I feel like I'm just, like, processing things and accepting things and, like, figuring everything out a bit more this time. And I'm not so overwhelmed and terrified by the change as I normally would be, because I am taking the steps to take care of myself a bit. And I've just never really realised that these are the kinds of steps I need to take care of myself, you know? So if you haven't figured it out either, there you go. But I really would love, like, any extra things that people do, because it's always good to know more. It's always good to have more things in your repertoire of accommodations, I suppose, because these are definitely ways that I've been accommodating to myself to make the change easier, and it's been working. But I'd love some more things in my little arsenal. I'd love to hear what you do, how you deal with it, how you feel about change. Like, just, you know how I am. I just really like reading comments. Leave me some really long rambly ones, please. Or really short. I don't mind what kind of comment you leave. I just enjoy reading them, and I feel bad when you apologise for them being rambly because I like that shit. So that's that. I've just realised I've got paint in my hair. Painted my room this week though, so that's good. You'll probably get to see it soon. I am very excited actually for my room and like the housing situation. I think it's gonna be great. It's gonna be a really good time. I'm just scared. It's just very different, and I don't know how I would change. That's been the point of this video. I need to shut up. You can support me on Ko-fi down below by buying me a coffee, which would be lovely. I'd love to be able to afford therapy and rent. But yeah, so if you wanted to do that, you don't have to, there's no pressure. There's also links to my social medias if you wanted to follow me elsewhere. And there's also an Amazon wishlist link that I'm still not entirely sure if it works or not, but you can try if you want to. There's no pressure, you don't have to. That's why I leave it till the end of the video. And whoever you are, wherever you are, I hope you're having a lovely morning, evening, day, afternoon, week, month, year. And I'll see you again in a few days.